You all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Yeah.
From artist, maintainer.
Albert Shivers.
The Matrix doesn't happen.
That's very true.
Come along quietly or not.
Goodbye, Willis.
As I was about to try to bribe
From Albert
the
Shivers.
mistress of the painting light,
They don't have to like it.
they're trying to put a caravan.
The general concept is that creativity flourishes in an atmosphere of freedom.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am, as I've always been, Albert Shivers. On this episode, I am excited, as usual, to be joined by Kristi Dennis, who is a photographer and musician. I've admired her work for a long time now, and her and I run in a lot of similar circles, but never really got the chance to have a decent conversation. I'm sure you guys know what I mean. You run across people, you bump shoulders on occasion, but you never really have the chance to have a conversation. And I was really looking forward to sitting down with Kristi and having a conversation, learning about her photography, learning about her interest in music, and it was great. And I hope you enjoy getting to know her as I did during this conversation. Other than that, I don't want to keep you guys too long on this intro. A little bit of what I got going on. Currently, I'm working on my own version of the Mona Lisa. I just thought it would be a fun project to do. And over the past year and a half or so, I got very interested in famous artists' B-sides, so to speak. We all know Mona Lisa. We all know the big Picassos. We all know the big Dalis. We know the big Fridas. We know all the big paintings by all the big artists. Goya, I'm leaving a bunch of them out. I even found some new ones. But I got very interested to know what paintings of theirs weren't famous. What may have led them to the famous painting. I got really wrapped up and interested in that and learned a hell of a lot since I started diving down those rabbit holes. And the thing with Mona Lisa, and I don't know, maybe I'm a Philistine here, but we always focus on Lisa. You know, there she is. Her eyes follow you, and there you go. But when you sink your teeth into the background of that painting, there's a lot of fun to be had back there. And that's what got me interested in being able to do my own version, a little nod to my Italian brother, and at the same time challenge myself too. So that's been a lot of fun. The thing about it, different than other paintings I've worked on, is that I'm not posting any progress shots. If anything, I'm putting little slivers on social media, but I'm not going to post anything until it's done, or if it ends up being close to done or done and I have a show coming up where it'll be seen, then I'm not going to post anything, maybe but a few snippets, and then you'll have to come see it in person, which would be really cool to be able to do that with a piece of art, to just kind of tease everybody in a way, just build up a little hype. You gotta sometimes, you gotta have a shtick. Other than that, you can find out more of what I'm up to on Instagram at Albert Shivers, or you can go on my website, www.albertshivers.com. And if you really feel like it, you can check out my new Etsy store. There's prints on there for sale. I'll be posting more prints, but I'm not telling you to buy nothing. Everything you turn on, somebody's telling you to buy something for Christmas. And I'm not asking you to buy nothing. But now that I think about it here, I could be asking you for something even more valuable than buying something with this podcast, with anything, which is your time. Because money's going to come and it's going to go, and you could kind of manage it. Most people, anyway, can manage it. But time is a whole different thing. And unlike money, I feel like you hardly ever know, ultimately, what time's going to do and when it might run out. So, let's just get to Kristi. I really enjoyed this conversation with her, and I hope you do too. And please go out and check her Instagram pages. The first one that I'm going to tell you is mainly her photography account, which is Kristi.217. So that's Instagram at Kristi, KRISTI.217. And the other one, which is Instagram at Kristi_take2. At Kristi, which again is KRISTI_take2. That's the number 2, not spelled out 2. Number 2. And on the first one, it numbers 2. None of the numbers are spelled out. They're just the numerals. So go check out her work. She sells prints. I hope that if you find a print that is exciting to you, that you hook her up with a sale. Why not? Support the artists. That's what I'm here to tell you this Christmas. Enjoy this conversation with Kristi Dennis, and it will be coming right to you after this very brief message.
Win 4 drawings, observed by an auditor from Coopers and Library.
Good evening, it's Friday, May 21st, 1993. I'm Yolanda Vega. Now here's tonight's number. The first ball up is 0. The next is 5, and the last is 3, making tonight's number 053.
Ladies and gents. So please, just to be informed about... And thank you so much.
Well, let's take a call.
I am excited to be joined by a photographer and multi-instrumentalist musician. Kristi, thank you so much for doing the show.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So since I've gotten more and more ensconced with the music scene around here and down the Lehigh Valley, I've seen you at so many different shows, and then ended up seeing so much of your photography. And first of all, I really like it.
Thank you.
I think that specifically with the music stuff, you have a way of capturing all the good moments from the perspective of the audience on stage. Like, you definitely capture high emotion moments on stage.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that,
So how long have you been doing photography or even been interested in it?
I started doing photography about 10 years ago. It was something I was always interested in. And, I went to the store and I bought a camera with like the kit lens, and I kind of dropped everything and I drove cross country taking photos all across the way. And I've just been into it ever since then. So I started off in nature photography, and like that was kind of like my passion, the thing that I did the most. And I got into photographing bands because a good friend of mine, Rob, was in the band Rubik's Cube.
Right.
And he asked me to take nice looking pictures of them when they're just starting out to put out there. So that's kind of how I got thrown into like the open mic night circuit and different shows and stuff. So that's kind of like a happy accident that I kind of got thrown into it. But now it's just like a thing that I do.
So on the cross-country trip, what were some like photographical highlights of that?
So I didn't have much of a plan when I left. I literally just dropped everything and was like, I'm just going. I knew I wanted to go to Yellowstone National Park. So that's like a big highlight. But like on the way to there, I would just stop at different places along the way. But I think the highlight definitely was Yellowstone. It's gorgeous. and I'm like dreaming of getting back there one day. Now that that was like my first experience with like taking photography. So now I'm like with all the different lenses and equipment and what I know now, like it would be great to go back. But there's a lot of really interesting sites.
Yellowstone is always somewhere I wanted to try to get to.
It's gorgeous. It's definitely worth it to go.
Yeah, I passed through Wyoming on a trip from Denver to San Francisco, but we had to get to Frisco by a certain time and didn't have much opportunity to go off the path. But that's always been a spot that I'd be interested to see. And how long were you out that way?
It was about 3 weeks. I wasn't there at Yellowstone for 3 weeks, but the whole trip from start to finish was about 3 weeks.
Cool. Now, do you shoot with film or you shoot digitally?
Digital.
Okay. Have you ever done any film stuff? Or would you like to if not?
I haven't, but it is an outlet I'd love to explore. It's just a matter of like, cause like for me, like I want to like be in control of like developing the film and everything. You know what I mean? So I would need like a dark room and all of this and that. But it is something that interests me that I'd like to pursue at some point.
Yeah, that's like the good and the bad of the digital world. It does make things a lot easier and accessible for folks without having to have a bunch of extras that you need to do. Because it does those little things you don't like from the outside. You don't think about the dark room and the da-da-da-da-da. So I can understand that. So when you're shooting bands, is there anything that you look for? Do you go mostly off instinct?
I think I'm entirely self-taught. I just kind of picked it up because I was like, it interests me and I want to do it.
Well, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so I have no formal education, so I think a lot of it is just instinct. It's just, like I see a moment and that's what I want to capture. I think some of it might be stature. I'm kind of at a lower stature. I think I get an interesting perspective in some pictures, this other people might not get.
Okay. That probably has a lot to do with it too. Because even the slightest change of an angle,
it makes a huge difference. It really does. Although on the other end, I have to like climb up on chairs and tables and stuff to get a higher perspective. But I love doing that kind of stuff. So I'm sure you've seen me around standing on like a table, like or something like
probably,
that. Yeah.
Were there any bands or groups that stand out to you in terms of like photographs that you're very happy with? Well,
I love photographing Rubik's Cube.
Vanessa, a good band to photograph.
She's probably one of the most photogenic people I've ever met. I did like a photo shoot with her. Like I don't normally do like staged photos, like photo shoots, because I don't really have a lot of the necessary equipment. But we went out maybe like a year ago or so, and we did some pictures, and I think they came out really nice. But she's like really into like the theatrics, so like she's always going to be doing something interesting to like catch like an interesting shot. And obviously Rob and like Dan are also great, and they have like all those special things. So I think always like Rubik's Cube will probably be my favorite, but I like to branch out and like do photos for like other bands, like Powwow the band. I did photos for them. I think you use, and they're great. I love photographing them. It was a lot of fun, and just really anybody I see.
I gotcha. So was the shoot with Vanessa? I think I know which. I think I've seen those pictures.
Yeah.
Is she in the water?
Yeah.
Okay. Those were great.
Yeah, she's so creative. So it's fun to, I had some ideas of my own, and then she had ideas. So it was like just kind of fun to collaborate with another creative person, artistic person, and
And you talk about equipment, and so I did film for a while before I really got heavy duty with the visual art, and obviously it's important, but it's a lot of times I find people, especially with film, they were letting the equipment get in the way of the art of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you could make, with enough artistic inspiration and ideas, you could make the worst camcorder or still camera do a great picture.
Yeah, I agree with you full-heartedly. I mean, all my equipment's used off-brand, you know.
Right.
I never buy, like, the high-end, you know, it'd be very expensive, but yeah, I like to, like, if I have an idea in my head of what kind of effect that I want in a picture, like, I try and see, like, what do I have just laying around the house that I can use to get that effect. And I kind of like that about photography, you know. Like, I don't want to just be like, I'm going to buy this from the store and then I'm going to instantly have that effect, you know. Like, I want to create it, you know what I mean? That makes sense.
It makes total sense. Have you ever found yourself in a moment of like improv, like you're saying, picking something up and just using it, where you're discovering something new, or like a new effect that, or even a happy accident, so to speak?
All the time, and that's what I love. And I'm really glad that I kind of got sucked into photographing like bands and shows and stuff, because it happens all the time. You know, you get like, you know, different kinds of lights going this way and that way, and like you can like time where the lights are going to be, like when you take a picture and get like a real cool effect. So I like that, and I like having just like a mix of different kinds of results, you know, based on just what the setting is at that time, you know. I mean, they don't always turn out good, but sometimes you get a good one.
Yeah, well, excuse me. You have to, like, the experimentation and the risk is part of it.
Yeah.
Because the artistic reward can be so great.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you, like, put yourself out there without a net, so to speak.
But, you know, sometimes you get that one shot and everybody's like, oh my God, that's incredible. It's like, let me show you the 100 other pictures I got before that, you know what I mean?
Right, and that exists in all different kinds of arts. You know, it's what you present and then the behind the scenes can be a little bit different, I guess.
But, you know, I love the whole process from like start to finish, you know.
Cool. So you also do some music too.
Yes, I do the music just like kind of as a hobby. You know, I've never had any formal education on like playing instruments, except the clarinet. I started on the clarinet like in grade school.
That's one of my favorite instruments.
So that's always going to be my favorite instrument, the one I'm most comfortable with. But from that, I picked up trumpet. Just because I was just confused, because like the clarinet has like 27 keys and the trumpet's just like 3 buttons. So I was like, I need to know how this works, and I ended up picking up the saxophone, which is very similar to a clarinet with a lot of the fingering. So like, if you can play a clarinet, you can by default like play an alto sax.
Okay. Do they have the same amount of keys?
I don't know, but it's very similar.
Okay. Gotcha. You ever listen to any Sidney Bechet?
I have not.
Okay, that would be... I'll have to send you some
please,
links.
Please do. I would love
He's
that.
probably... he was one of the first to get popular with the clarinet and alto saxophone in jazz during the 20s and 30s.
I would love to hear that. I love jazz, like older music. I don't know if it was you. Do you collect 78s or listen to 78?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So I also, for a while, was collecting them and listening to them. So that old-timey kind of music, I love it. And any song that has a clarinet in it, I'm always all about it. Because you don't hear the clarinet in music that often, you know, unless it's like big band or something like that, you know. So I love hearing clarinet and saxophone in music.
Yeah, I'll hook you up with some tunes.
Okay.
Because, like, Sidney Bechet was the biggie, and before he had moved to France with all, like, the racial problems here back then. There were a lot of jazz artists who had the money and the means to move to Europe and just get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was neck and neck in popularity in those days with Armstrong. And all the band leaders wanted to get their hands on Sidney Bechet and have him in the band. But then he moved to Europe and just kind of fell off the map for a while, and then blew back up in the late 30s and came out with a bunch of different singles and 78s and stuff and jumped around from band to band. But he was like the big clarinet alto force in those days. Because a lot of times, not to go off on this tangent, but a lot of times those instruments were meant to be laced within the band and very seldom featured.
Yeah. Mm.
But with Bechet and a few others, they were such strong players that if you didn't feature them, they would just play over you and make themselves featured. But that's cool.
Yeah, that sounds truly fascinating, and I'd love to hear the music. And I love the history behind things, so like that's interesting just to know, like, you know, because everybody heard of Louis Armstrong, obviously,
right.
You know. But yeah, no, I definitely like to listen to that.
Okay, no, I'll hook you up.
Okay, cool, thank you.
So, one thing I also, as I did my little bit of research, is you're into old photography, and sometimes you can even colorize it.
Yes, I do that as well.
So do you look around? Do you collect old photos?
I do collect old photos. I started collecting them because I thought I could sell them. And then the more I looked at them, I was like, oh no, I'm just collecting these now because I just love them. So like now I have a collection of old photos. It's just mostly like cabinet cards and stuff. But, you know, art is something I love. I'm like, in terms of like drawing and stuff like that, I'm not so good at it. So I like to think of like technical things like digitally colorizing an old picture. Like in my heart, the original black and white version is always the best, you know? Right. But I like to think like how, like if I can't physically take a paintbrush and paint a painting because I'm just, my skills at that aren't that good, how can I make something with something I can do that's almost like a painting? And then like the digital colorizations was like the answer to that. So I just kind of picked that up as like a hobby.
I gotcha. Yeah, and sometimes they, like yours look good. Sometimes the colorization doesn't look so swift when they do it. I don't know what the process is. Like, how do you do that?
There's a few different ways that people go about it. You know, I like to literally, like I said, like a painting. I think of it like a painting.
Okay.
You know, like I'm painting it. So like, I'll like use like applications that mimic like things like paintbrushes and like blending in paints together on like the same layer. I think like a lot of times everything's just like stacked up and not really like maybe blended as well. I'm not really sure what's the correct way of doing it. You know, I don't know the correct way of doing anything, but I feel like I do it like I really do think of it more like I'm making a painting. Okay.
So you're doing like you're digitally going over the picture?
Yes.
Okay. I gotcha. That's cool though. Is there anything like when you're out there and you find an old picture or you're on the hunt for some old photography, are there things that you gravitate to more so than others?
Well, there are a lot of things that I would gravitate towards, but they can be very expensive. Like, you know, like Civil War, like I would love to get like pictures of those pictures, but those, I mean, those sell for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I can't, or like anything that is like a unique situation, you know what I mean? I gravitate towards that. You know, most of what I have is just like, you know, portraits of people, which is also really cool. But you know, like anything that like is from like, you know, 100+ years ago, and it has this history behind it. Like I'm interested in looking at, you know. So.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you ever notice, speaking of like photos that are portraits of people in the old days, you ever notice that people don't look the same as they did back then?
Yes.
Compared to now.
That's something I notice.
Even animals.
Yeah, no, everything.
Don't look the same. Yeah. Like you ever watch the old Little Rascals shorts? So you have Petey was their dog. So Petey was a pit bull. Full bred.
Yeah, the breeds of dogs have changed so
and you look at them now,
yeah.
And even old films, like there's big differences in German Shepherds. I even noticed.
Yeah, I think. Well, this would be way off topic, but I think a lot of that is like people, you know, they see features in dogs that people like, and they try and like bring that out in like breeding. So I think a lot of it is from that, like trying to like breed dogs to have desired effects, which I don't necessarily agree with, because then there's like health problems for the animals on the opposite end of that.
Growing up, we had an Akita, and he was the result, Smokey, his name wasn't. He was the result of cousins. Where the breeder just kind of forced cousins, and he ended up with hip problems, and it was a mess.
See, like that happens, and it's like that's an animal. It has a life. Like it can feel. It's just like I don't know.
No, I hear you. But yeah, even with people, like stature has changed, facial structure has changed.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with. I could really go off on a tangent that's like way off topic, but
go for it, please.
And structure, like stuff like that. Like some of it is like just from like eating softer foods. Like that'll change your jawline. Like stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, but like little things like that you don't think about. Like you growing up for like how many years and just being on like soft foods, like that's kind of more of like a thing of the future. But in doing that, like it changes your jawline. It's soft, like it makes it softer.
Okay.
And it's like that's like just the first example I could think of, like why there's like variations in how people look over the course of years. Also, don't quote me, like none of that, like that could all be crap. I might be wrong, you know what I mean? I'm not like I'm not an expert on anything. So,
no, but there's probably so many factors, and that could very easily be one of them. Like diet probably has a big thing to do with the difference in lifestyle then to now. And even as beauty standards changed throughout the decades, that could also factor in to just how we've changed.
Yeah, it's like so many very minor things, that allowances in our lives that are like in the future or whatever that could change like appearance that you don't really think about. So it's actually really fascinating.
Yeah. And I would even say like I've seen it more lately, this like running gag online where folks that maybe be in our generation will look back at like high school photos from the 80s or the 70s or the 60s and how those people look like they're 40 in their high school. They look older than we would be now in their high school graduation photos. So it's all very interesting.
It is fascinating. I love looking at I was looking at my mom's yearbook and she graduated high school in 1981. Okay. And it's like everybody has the same that hairstyle. I think what hairstyle and so everybody the same hairstyle, but I thought it was hilarious. Like the men and the women, they all just had the hair that flipped out like this. And
even depending, you could chop it down even shorter, and even depending on where you were.
Yeah, that plays a huge role in it.
Where you were located has a lot to do with how people look.
Oh yeah, I love looking at Civil War pictures of people in the North versus people in the South. You know how they look. You know what I mean? Because it's it's hot and there's a sun, and then it's cold and freezing in the North.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And then there's the clothes.
Yeah, the clothes is a big one.
Which is a whole different thing. And I've even, at one point I figured, well, maybe it's more the clothes and in terms for women, more the makeup that's making everybody look different. And I would sit and try to imagine that's an old photo. Okay, let's try to turn this person modern. In my mind.
And think what would they look today, but
right, but it's still not.
There's still something, yeah.
Yeah, there's still something.
No,
different.
I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, consuming all this old photography, do you feel that it affects your photography work now?
Looking at the older pictures and how they're set up and how they do things, yes, that inspired me greatly in my photography. I love the the effect of the pictures when you have to wait 5 minutes to take the picture, the long exposure. I love that look. Obviously that's not realistic to do in a real life setting, but I was definitely very inspired by just looking through old pictures and
Yeah, and depending on how far back you go, getting your picture taken was a big deal.
Yeah, it was really.
And it was the day. That's what you did that day.
Yeah.
So they put a lot of time into it that we don't as much now.
And that's it makes a difference. You know what I mean? You're looking at a picture, you don't think about what went into this. How much time did it take? this photographer have to do, or the people, and like I think about that, you know.
Okay.
Kind of a thing. So.
Well, and now it's, depending on how you look at it, it can be almost throwaway. You know, we all have a camera.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, the cameras on the phones are like, I mean, they're like incredible. You know.
Yeah. Like I have one, maybe two photographs of my great grandmother, and a few generations from now, you'll have 1,000 pictures of your grandparents from their whole life. Here they are here. They are over here.
Like every stage of their life. Like I have a picture of my great grandfather, great. I never remember how many greats.
Okay.
Enlisting into the army for World War I, and he was like only 16 years old. I'm like, that's crazy, but that's the only picture I have of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but
yeah, and that, you know, that was probably a big day for him.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess that's why we still today have that picture. You know, like it's like so, like it has so much meaning behind it, and that's something that I really appreciate.
And the fact that there's one.
Yeah.
You know, that just gives it all the more gravitas. Because, I tried to, like, over the years, get as many, like, the old family photos as I could, and I would find myself at antique stores or flea markets and finding cool things, or doing clean-out jobs, and you stumble across cool things. And especially, so I grew up in the city, and to come up here and find photos of old farms from up here, or just seeing like the different lifestyle that it was up here compared to down there, even in the same time period, whether it's the 30s or the 40s or the 50s, however far back you want to go. It's definitely a window into that time, and you could connect the dots and put together what it might have been like.
Yeah.
So it's the old photography is a lot of fun, and it's cool to know that you apply it to what you do now. Like, do you get like framing ideas?
Yeah, framing.
Setup?
Yeah, framing. Composition is a big one.
So, what kind of composition do you like?
I don't, like I said, I'm not formally educated on anything, so it's like I don't know. Like I see something and I'm just like, you know, that's how I want to shoot it. Like I see something in my head, and it's not always necessarily what you're gonna like get through the lens, because there's always some kind of discrepancy. But like, I mean, I'll find myself like laying on the ground, or like, you know, like this way or that way, and I have like people walking around the park that are like, what the heck is wrong with this person? But I don't know. Like a lot of what I do is very in the moment. You know what I mean?
That's great.
But like I can see something like a photo, even of like a landscape. From years ago, from around like this area, like the Delaware Water Gap is like gorgeous. You'll see like, I'm sure you've seen lots of old pictures from there. It's always kind of like in the back of my head, you know. So.
Gotcha. Cool. And you bring up formal education, and it's a double-edged sword. You know, it can teach you things, and it could ruin a little bit of freedom.
I think it kind of takes. You know, because if you like go into like a school and they're like, here's all these things that you need, these tools that you need, here they are, and here's a situation that we just set up, and we're going to tell you how to take this photograph, and let's just say it's like you're trying to photograph light, which you can't photograph light. It's reflections of like dust and things off the light. And then the instructor says, this is exactly how you take this picture, and this is what you do. It's great to know that, so it's like you don't have to spend time trying to figure it out, right?
Right.
But it takes away like a certain aspect of like creativity from it in my mind. You know, you might not get the perfect shot. You might have to try through trial and error to get it. But I think that in getting to that point, there's a lot of things that I think that you learn from point A to point B that I don't think that, like, for me personally, I think everybody's different. For me personally, like, I would be missing that. You know, it's just like the process of doing things is always like important to me too. So.
Yeah, I agree in that. Like through that process, you'll number one, you'll find those happy accidents, and
yeah, you learn tricks that people don't know, and they're like, how did you get that shot? How did you do it? And I think back in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not exactly sure. Now I have to go back and figure that out, but it's...
And even by like learning it yourself, it sinks in a different way.
It's absolutely, and it stays with you. It's like you know it more than it's just like somebody's like, here you go, here's this information, now you do this. Like it has more meaning behind it.
So with your nature photography, what kind of stuff do you seek out? What do you enjoy to photograph in nature?
Nature, I do birds mostly. Okay. I find I used to know anything about birds. They're just like these specks in the sky, but it's the more you like observe them and watch them, it's like the more fascinating they become. So like on the tail end of just taking pictures of like birds because they're a lot of them are really beautiful and what have you. Now I'm just like interested in birds, so it's like kind of like bird watching and the photography is like two hobbies that could go hand in hand. So that's definitely I think it's probably what I'm best at, and just what I enjoy doing the most. But I do love doing the photography for the live bands and stuff like that too, which is also another thing where it's like two hobbies that go hand in hand because music is a hobby of mine. Right. I love going to shows. I love listening to music. So it's like, for me, I think I'm very lucky that photography is something I'm always wanted to do. I've been interested in. But, like, I can find outlets of photography, like the nature and the bird watching and the music that it's like it's two different things that I love together. So I like... Right.
So it's going to come out good.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't, I had a great time, listening to a band or just relaxing and enjoying nature around me, you know what I mean? So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
No matter what.
That's cool. Yeah, it would be fun to kind of... I was just imagining like getting a band to play outside.
Oh my God, yeah, I would love that. I'll talk to Rob and see if I can do anything.
The Rubik's Cube would definitely be up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Being friends with him, and I lived with him for a while, they were constantly rehearsing, practicing,
it shows.
Everything they do is very important to them, and they're the kind of people who kind of going back to what I was saying before, a lot of thought and personal dedication really does go into everything that they do, which is something I really respect.
Yeah. And that's how it's its own reward.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm sure you could relate to the fact that I've seen many a band who was good and they one thing or another and they just fall apart without the stick-to-itness or that attention to detail.
And, it pays off,
So are you going to be the official tour photographer?
I'm not an official photographer for them. Like I said, I did photos for them a lot, and this is not necessarily anything I want to talk about on this podcast, but I had a bunch of surgeries on my head, so I kind of had to take a break from that for a while, and I just kind of I did the pictures for them when they were starting out, and then every now and again I'll do pictures for them, but I'm not their official photographer or anything by any means. I'm just I kind of let them. They got so popular and everything, that I'm just you go. And the people you go, photographers will come. You don't need me now. You can go on and do your own thing. But they're just kind of that's how I got into doing photos for bands. That's really what kind of started that for me.
Cool.
It was just trying to do a favor for my friend.
Gotcha.
It just kind of turned into this whole thing. But I'm glad. I love, like I said, it's happened by accident. You know what I mean? I didn't go to college and be train me to take photos of a band. You know what I mean? It's just where my life was at that moment, the people around me, what they're doing,
Yeah, and it would be your passion, and it shows. Do you have any things coming up that you're going to be going to, shooting photos?
I don't have really anything planned at the moment. Okay. I really am an in-the-moment kind of a person, so I'm sure something will come along my way. I'm trying to focus more, or at least get a little more experience doing, planned photo shoots, because, I'm such an in-the-moment kind of a person that, the idea of planning something and staging something is almost somewhat intimidating to me.
Okay.
And it's like if I wanted to take photography and make it a career and sell my pictures, people don't want to pay you for pictures of birds, sadly. But that's something that I am gonna have to kind of get more of a feel, more be more comfortable with. So
okay,
that's something I kind of plan on focusing on and trying to work out.
Awesome. And before we wrap up, where can folks find some of your work?
So right now it's just Instagram. I need to create like an actual official like website because like most photographers have that. So it's something I'm working on that I don't have. But right now it's just the Instagram account. If you want to like just put that on there. I have the personal account, which is Kristi Take 2, and then the other one which I created on Instagram to kind of try and showcase like just my best like nature photography. That's I believe it's Kristi 217 photography. I'll send it to you, but I think that's what it is. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure I follow both of them, so I'll throw them in there. This way folks will be able to find what you're doing. But yeah, it was good to talk to you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me.
No, absolutely. And yeah, we'll get some folks to check out your stuff.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. It was so great to have Kristi on. Fun conversation. Other than that, you can find this episode and more on all podcast platforms, major ones that is, and YouTube. Give it a listen. Like I said, all I'm asking for is your time. Everybody this time of year has got their fucking hand out. I got nothing. Just listen and enjoy. That's all I want to say. You could also check me out on Instagram at Albert Shivers, on the internet www.albertshivers.com. And what else is there? The Etsy, if you're feeling it, Shivers Artery. I'm going to be putting more prints up there soon. And there's good episodes coming up. I'm hoping to get a little Christmassy with the podcast. We'll see what happens. And yeah, until next time, everybody, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.
Goodbye, wimps.